Well, hello everyone, welcome back. So in this video, we are going to download Android Studio. So Android Studio is the IDE, so the integrated development which we'll be using to create Android applications. So I know you're very excited. So the first thing we need to do again is just to go to Google and type in download Android Studio. There it is. So click on that. So there's a lot of options here. The first thing we need to do, go ahead, take the first one first. There it is. So it says here, download Android Studio for Windows, which is exactly what we need here. You can go ahead and look at system requirements. So make sure that your system has the requirements needed in order for this to work. That's very important, okay? So without any further ado, let's go ahead and say download Android Studio. Click on that. And of course, you have to say yes to a few terms here. So go ahead and read this, okay? And then say, I understand, I have read, and I agree. And just say download Android Studio. And it's going to say now downloading Android Studio, which is exactly what we were hoping for. And you can also notice that it's a big file. It has 887 megabytes. So, give it a little bit of time. It may take a little while. Go drink some tea or go eat lunch or dinner or breakfast or whatever you need to do. And let it do its thing. And we'll return when we are ready to install. All right. See you in a bit. Well, great. There it is, our Android Studio executable. So double click on that. There's a lot of information here you should go through and read. And of course, asks us to make sure this is indeed something that we want to install. Yes, it is. So it's going to be installing now. All right. So let's see our progress here. We can click in here. Welcome to Android Studio setup. So let's go ahead and say next. And tells us what it's going to be installed. And we're going to be installing Android SDK, Android virtual devices, performance, and so forth. And as you can see, it requires a little bit of space, so about 3.9 gigabytes. So we're going to go say next. And I agree, of course. I agree again. And tells you where you're going to be installing the Android Studio here. Now, the reason why mine says Android Studio 1 is because I had previously installed Android Studio. That's probably why it's giving me 1. In your case, probably just going to say Android Studio, and that's all fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and say next. And it says recommended 5512. That's fine with me. So click next. So this is all good. Say install, and it will take a little bit. And now Android Studio is being installed on our machine. Give it a little bit of time. Go ahead and take a little walk or something, or go get some coffee. And once this is done, we will return and move forward. All right, so here we go again. We have everything installed now. So you can say next, and we're going to go ahead and finish. So as you can see, here is our Android Studio installation complete. So it says here you can import your settings from previous Studio. You can go ahead and just say, I do not have previous settings, and say OK. Okay, so now Android Studio, as you can see, is setting itself up, and we'll take a few seconds. All right, so here, of course, it's going to ask us to give us allow access, say OK. So Android Studio is still doing its thing, and there you go. There you have it. Now we have our Android Studio all set up. So as you can see here, when you first start, it gives you the option to either use IntelliJ theme, or if you want to use Dracula. Dracula, I like it because it makes it easier for the eye. It's darker, and I like that. But whichever you want, I'm going to just go choose Dracula here. And I'm going to make sure and go ahead and say next. And as you can see, checking for updates SDK. Take a little bit of time here. All right, so as you can see, all the necessary files and SDKs have been updated. You can see this report here, so that's good. And so if we look at the bottom here, it said we can go ahead and say finish. And this is what you should be able to see. This is what you're always going to see when you start, right? You can go ahead and check for updates, but we're not going to do that right now. So you go ahead and say start new Android Studio project. And of course, what we could do, we're going to call this hello Android. Do here our company name, it's always the reverse domain name. So we're going to go ahead and say com.myandroidhello.app. That works. Location, that's fine. Let's go next. And we can choose an API, right? So this is fine here. Okay, so go next. And just choose this blank one here, and we proceed, say next, and say finish. Now Android Studio is going to go ahead and create us a brand new project to work with. Since this is the first time, of course, it's going to take a few minutes, so give it a few minutes for it to do its work. As you can see here, it's building its Gradle, so essentially creating the project ground up. And of course, we need to allow access. If this happens to you, don't worry, just say allow, and we'll proceed. And as you can see, loading project. Wonderful. So we have our Android Studio here. So this is a tip of the day. You will likely see this every time you open your Android Studio, which I think it's a good idea to go next step and kind of read, because it gives you really nice tips that will allow you to become a more efficient developer. If you don't like getting this every day, you can just go and check these show tips on startup. But in my case, I always like to see that because it's always a good idea. And I'm going to go ahead and close that for now. So this is our Android Studio. It's here and it's wonderful. Now, the other thing we need to do, as you can see here at the bottom here, there's some issues, but don't worry about that for now. If you click here, project, you see it's going to start initializing and will load our app project. So if you click here, you'll see all of these files here, which we will talk into detail at a later time. But the next thing we need to do before we proceed here, in the next video, we'll go ahead and install Genymotion, which is an emulator that was created by a third-party company, which is much better to use because it's faster as opposed to using the emulators that Android or that Google provide, right? So in the next video, we're going to go ahead and learn how to install Genymotion, which is the fastest emulator known to man. I may be exaggerating there, but it is pretty close. All right, so I'll see you in the next video.